Let's start with the AA. I want to get a sort of independent look at where do we fit in South Africa as of the most dangerous roads in the world to travel on, especially this time of the year.
Yeah, well, that's a valid point, Evan. We definitely are. We definitely have some of the most dangerous roads in the world. Our statistics are some of the worst in the world. Per 100,000 population, we have, I think out of 36 countries, we were recently rated as having the worst figures. And that was an independent report by the International Transport Forum. And I think to put that into context, we have on average about 14,000 people a year that die on our roads. That's not including injuries, that's just absolute numbers, those are just road deaths.
That's more than 1,000 a month.
It's about 1,000 a month if you average that out, about 40 a day. And I think that really puts it into context. Yeah. And then over the holiday seasons, over December and over Easter, those numbers escalate. So over December, we have anywhere between 1,100 and 1,500 that die on our roads. And over the Easter period, about 240 odd last year died on our roads over a 3-day period.
Gilberto, year on year for the last 10 years, is it getting any better? Is it improving or is it getting worse? We're putting in lots of different campaigns to deal with this issue, but it seems that things are getting worse. Is that accurate?
Well, the difficulty is that certainly as the number of vehicles increase being registered, we certainly don't notice a drastic downfall or drop in the numbers. And what we have picked up recently in working closely with the provinces is that at the moment, what we're picking up is that the driver has become a major issue in many of these crashes. And, one talks about roads, one talks about roadworthiness, but at the moment, in the last 7 crashes that we've had, driver error or driver attitude has been responsible for 5 of them. So it's becoming an area that it's not about how the vehicle, it's about an attitude on the road. And certainly that's something which is very, very hard to deal with. It's everybody's responsibility. So certainly the numbers are not dropping down as we'd like them to drop.
That's very scary indeed. I wanted to go to Cape Town quickly, where the Transport Minister Robin Carlisle, or MEC for Transport in the Western Cape, is standing by. Just tell us, Cape Town is bracing itself for what will be an exodus in a way, going to the Eastern Cape and the like, but also a lot of incoming traffic into the city and the province over the holiday season. How are you guys doing anything differently this year to deal with the issues we've just put on the table?
Yeah, we will have the influx down the N1 and then the efflux up the N1 and on to the R60 Aberdeen Road and on from there into the Eastern Cape. And then those two reverse themselves around January the 6th. The key thing that we've done is we've now got average speed over distance camera technology from 3 Sisters right through to Langsburg, and that's the key killing area. And we also have it from Beaufort West to our border with the Eastern Cape. Now, that's been there for 2 years, and that's reduced the death rate on that road by half. And I've no doubt that this average speed over distance will also reduce on the Kaniduat section of the N1, will reduce the death rate over the next 12 months by half or close to that.
How do you, we heard earlier about driver attitudes being one of the last remaining problems. How do you approach that in the Western Cape?
Well, with considerable concern, young, male, small, fast cars. That's the formula for death and destruction. The 2 main classes of fatalities on the road are pedestrians, for which we have one strategy, and secondly are passengers in cars. Now, that's a dual thing of, first of all, usually a young driver, male, sometimes drunk, usually going too fast, and passengers in the back of the car not strapped in. And that's the death formula. That creates about 46% of our deaths on the Western Cape roads.
I wanted to bring it back to Gilberto here in the Western Cape. You mentioned that this is now been isolated as the sort of death trap or the identity of the most dangerous road user. How do you plan on combating that going forward, and especially during this period?
Well, what we've done is that we do believe that road safety is the whole year round. It's not a festive season. Certainly, we like to ensure that road safety should be practiced every single day. At the RTMC, what we have done is we've identified the 30 most hazardous roads in the entire country. As the MEC has indicated, the 2 particular ones in the Western Cape, but equally the R61 in the Eastern Cape. We've got the N3 in KZN. We've got the Polokwane Messina Road. Now, what we're doing is that together with the provinces, we're going to ensure that with the National Traffic Police, we'll assist them in high visibility and monitoring. And this is to make sure that by knowing that the increase in vehicles is on that road, we're certainly going to take out all stops, working closely with the provinces and assisting them to ensure that not only are you doing the normal roadblock, but looking for all the other little things. It's the state of the driver, the tiredness of the driver. So certainly that's what we're going to do in supporting our provinces to ensure that we certainly deal with these crashes.
I want to bring the AA in here. Is it maybe time for us to, I understand that there are changes in subtle changes in strategy happen, but is there maybe a time for us to maybe sort of take a completely different view and look at how we can maybe have less traffic on the road this times of the year? Is there a way of doing that? Public transport? Do you get people to travel at different times? What is the thinking at the AA?
Well, I think to force people into public transport, I don't think is a feasible option. You know, we talk around e-tolls, and Sanral says, well, people, if you don't want to use the toll roads, start using alternate options, public transport being one. Our public transport infrastructure, I don't think is equipped to deal with that. And that's also, you know, what we need to look at is the condition of some of our roads. But I think really to go to your point about how we change things out on the road, I agree with Gilberto. There is this attitude by the average driver that kind of smells a little. You know, we tend to have a poor attitude on the road. We tend to be quite aggressive. We tend to be non-tolerant of other drivers, and that needs to start to change. And I think if we all consciously take an effort of trying to change our behaviour, I think that's a good start. Yeah. But what we also need to start seeing is greater enforcement of the laws, of the rules of the road. And to Gilberto's point, it's not a festive season thing. It's a year-round effort. Yeah. This really needs to happen from the 1st of January to the 31st of December every year, and we need to step up. Law enforcement really needs to step up its objectives and its mandates, and really to start prosecuting anybody and everybody that breaks the law. And that's right from minor offences through to things like drinking and driving.
I wanted to go back to Cape Town and ask the politician amongst us about this anger on the roads. Has the roads in Cape Town and the rest of the country become a place where people vent their frustration in general? And is that part of the danger on the road, sir?
Yeah, let me make two points. One is it's not all doom and gloom. You know, in the Western Cape, we've brought down the death rate by 28.6%. So, you know, we can do this. We mustn't believe this beyond our capacity and our ability. But secondly, yes, we are at the moment a somewhat anxious and unhappy nation, and that does reflect in how a lot of people perform on the roads. A lot of youngsters particularly feel very secure inside their little nodule, or whatever you want to call it, their little spaceship, until it hits something. But the key thing that is not happening, that should happen, is that when a driver kills, he should go to jail after the normal legal, once he's been convicted, he should end up in jail. You should not be able to kill on the roads through irresponsibility, drunkenness or whatever, and not go to jail. But in my 4 years here, all of the culpable homicide charges, many of them linked to drinking, only one person has gone to jail.
Your response to that as the road management Traffic Management Corporation?
Yeah, I think even in support of the MEC and certainly the province, we do need to ensure that justice is dealt with sharply and swiftly, because sometimes it's trivialized. Drinking and driving is trivialized.
Yeah.
And it's a sad state when one starts questioning even the screening methodology. The fact of the matter, there are people's lives that have been taken, and we make it into a trivial episode, as the MEC quite rightly says. If I can say, even in the last traffic summit that we had last week, where we met all the 9 provinces, we're looking at lessons learnt in all the provinces to share them and the best practice. And one of the issues that did come up was the whole justice process to deal with such things swiftly, because unfortunately, when 14 people are killed in a crash, the situation for them lingers on for a long time. And you look at the reasons of what happened, maybe they're not being dealt with swiftly enough, and we're not sending the signal out, if you do something like this, you are in trouble.
It really changes the lives of not just individuals, but many, many families, and that is completely life-changing. I wanted to ask you, as the AA, is there an argument for us to think about things like drink driving courts? And in my experience on the roads in South Africa and just generally living amongst the populace, I know that a lot of people drink and drive in South Africa. Is it getting better?
Yeah, but I don't think so. I think, to an earlier point, drinking and driving and to some extent breaking some of the laws of the road has almost become socially acceptable. And until such time as that changes, I don't think we're going to see a dramatic change in the numbers. It really speaks to, over the weekend we bragged to our friends about how we got away for speeding because we bribed a traffic officer.
With $100.
Precisely. And what really needs to happen is, I think the law needs to clamp down. We need to try and root out some of that corruption. And it's a two-part role there. The motorist needs to stop bribing, and the law enforcement officers need to stop accepting those bribes and really do their jobs. And until such time as we have people that are made examples of, that are caught for drinking and driving, that are even slightly over the limit, we wait for that to happen. I think that's something that really needs to happen more aggressively on our roads so that people start respecting the rules of the road. They're there for a reason.
Fine. I want to give you a last word quickly, Mr. MEC, Mr. Carlisle, down in Cape Town. You've heard about the drink driving and Cape Town being this holiday destination. Is there going to be a special focus this year on drink driving and general misbehavior?
Now, Gilberto is right, and it's important what he says. We have a festive season, but in fact, this has got to be 24/7 and 52 weeks a year, because those deaths per 100,000 vehicles don't go up over the festive season. The number of deaths go up, but in ratio they don't. So the key thing, in our opinion, is a fourfold thing. One is your public transport, and we hope to be doing a show on this station on how we check the safety of public transport. The second is roadblocks. 1 in every 4 cars in the Western Cape will go through a roadblock over this period. Testing for alcohol. There's no point to roadblocks where you don't test for alcohol. The third thing is speeding, and that's our average speed over distance now, covering 300 kilometers in the province. And the fourth thing is is seat belts. Sorry, I said 4.5 points. Seat belts. We're doing a major campaign at the moment to get people to wear their seat belts. And the fifth thing is pedestrians. We also have a major campaign in that regard. If we pursue those kind of lines, we will bring down the death toll.
Mr. Carlisle, thank you very much for joining us from Cape Town. Very insightful comments this morning from Transport Minister in the Western Cape, Robin Carlisle. Thank you once again for joining us. Just to conclude matters here, I wanted to ask you about what Graeme spoke about a little bit earlier, about how do we attack this monster that is drink driving in South Africa, and that causes so many accidents and changes so many lives. I was thinking about specific drink driving courts to expedite this kind of matter. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I believe that anything that could certainly ensure that we catch those people that are breaking the law in terms of drink should be considered. If it's the courts, it's the courts. But even if it means reducing the alcohol level even lower, what we find is that there seems to be a tendency that you screen someone, and if he's just 0.2 over of the limit, there's a whole area that this gets contested of the time and how it was done. Whereas the fact should be that if you're drinking behind the wheel, then clearly it should be either yes or no. There cannot be an in-between, because the lives that it's cost is not in between. They are definite. And just the one thing that's important for us as well is to say, that when you start doing these things, you can't stop. It's got to be continuous. Yeah. And once that attitude changes, then you'll get there. But while people have this possible back door, as Graeme says, whether it's corruption, whether it's a bribe, when you bribe someone, you're actually saying, well, if further down the road I kill someone, I'm a murderer, because that's what I've got away with it.
Graeme, I want to ask you about, the big furor right now is e-tolling here in Johannesburg, and what effect does the poor quality of roads have on death tolls, and what sort of effect these kinds of e-tolling rolls have on bringing down numbers of deaths on our roads?
Our highways are world class. There's no doubting that. The payment method is the thing that's in question. We don't object to paying for the roads, we object to the e-tolling system. But what we're now seeing happen is people are starting to use alternate routes. The alternate routes, in some respects, don't cope with the volume of traffic. And it's only going to be a matter of time before we have an oil tanker or a fuel tanker traveling through a suburb to avoid the tolls and has a massive accident. That fingers are going to be pointed at SANRAL to say, look what you've done. And I think, those are some of the, it's maybe an extreme example, but I think these are things that may happen over time. And tolling, I think, it's a long-term thing. We can't point fingers now. I think we need to give it a couple of months, maybe a year, and then we can make a call on that. And
to sort of see the results, pro or against. The last word belongs to you. So what is your message to the motorists, road users in general, all over South Africa for this period that's coming up?
Well, our message is simple. It's that when you're behind the wheel, obey the rules of the road. A speed limit is not there by chance. It was designed as part of the road. A road safety sign and a road barrier line indicates that if you overtake at a certain point, you're going to lose sight. So we appeal to the motorists to buckle up, don't drink and drive, but more important, understand that every road safety sign, every road marking is a silent warning of what you should be doing. And if we can certainly take that attitude and start small, certainly the bigger actions will follow. But let's start small as individuals and respect, and I think that will certainly make a difference, Evan.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Very, very insightful. We're heading into a tough time on the roads in South Africa. That is the CEO of the Road Traffic Management Corporation, Gilberto Martins, and Graeme Scala from the AA, the Automobile Association. Thank you very much once again.
Thanks, Evan.
Thank you.
Moving on, the ANC has called for the release of the final Nkandla report. The party has also instructed government to make available to the public all the experts who decided and designed the security features on the president's home. Last week, snippets of the report were leaked to the media.
Last week, a weekly news